Pozdravljeni, sem Marja Milič in gledate Manihao, prvi podcast o upravljanju denarja pri nas. Tokrat gostim Američana italijanskih korenin, rojenega blizu slovenske meje in ime mu je Mario Gobbo. Mario je med drugim tudi predsednik nadzornega sveta Cinkarne Celje. Z družino sicer živi v Washingtonu, Slovenijo pa obiskuje oziroma posluje tu vse od leta 1988. Preden gremo na pogovor z Mario, tam bi mogoče samo za uvod predstavila, kdo Mario je. Mario ima več desetletij izkušenj na svetovnih finančnih trgih. V svoji dolgoletni karieri je deloval v več mednarodnih finančnih inštitucijah, med drugim v investicijskem bančništvu pri Lazard Brothers v Londonu, kjer je bil odgovoren za področje prevzemov in združitev ter finančnega svetovanja v srednji in vzhodni Evropi s poudarkom na farmaciji in energetiki. Vodil tudi ekipo na področju bioloških znanosti v New Yorku, kjer je sodeloval v procesih uvrstitve farmacevtskih in biotehnoloških družb na borzo Nasdaq. Mario je prav tako vzpostavil oddelek za neposredne lastniške naložbe v podjetja, aktivno na področju bioloških znanosti pri mednarodni finančni korporaciji IFC ter podružnici Svetovne banke za zasebni sektor. V zadnjih letih je precej aktiven kot svetovalec ali član upravnih odborov v številnih družbah v ZDA in v EU, tudi v Sloveniji, kjer je bil v predhodnem mandatu tudi član nadzornega sveta zavarovalnice Triglav. V epizodi pa boste slišali, da je sodeloval tudi z kar precej drugimi slovenskimi podjetji. Pogovor je v bistvu kar precej zanimiv, dotakneva se pravzaprav vsega po malem, predvsem z vidika, kako Američan gleda na Evropo, kako gleda na Slovenijo, kako kot Američan doživlja inflacijo v Ameriki. Skratka, vsega po malem se dotakneva pa se tudi v bistvu njegovega upravljanja premoženja. Tukaj boste slišali, da je predvsem aktivna njegova žena, ki je stalno v lovu za naložbenimi priložnostmi in ona je vzela v bistvu nekako pobudo, da upravlja njuno skupno premoženje. Njun portfelj je zelo razpršen, to boste tudi slišali. Drugače pa Mario obžaluje, da ni že prej bolj aktivno začel z upravljanjem svojega denarja. Zanimivo je seveda tudi pogled na dogajanje v Ameriki, odgovarja tudi na vprašanje, ali je Amerika še vedno dežela, kjer se uresničijo sanje. Odgovarja tudi na vprašanje, ali so Američani v luči zadnjih dogodkov bolj razcepljeni, razdeljeni kot narod. Odgovarja tudi seveda, kako je živeti v Ameriki v okolju povišane inflacije. Pred časom sva se pogovarjala, je rekel, 4. julija konkretno, sva se z Marjatom pogovarjala in je rekel, da Američani še ne doživljajo recesije. Danes je povsem drugačna zgodba, številni Američani s strahom gledajo, kaj se bo zgodilo. Tako da v Ameriki se dogaja vse z večjo hitrostjo, svetlobno hitrostjo, Evropa pa nekoliko caplja. Tako da to je v bistvu kar zanimiv pogovor, priporočam, da ga poslušate. Pogovor je zopet posnet v angleškem jeziku, pogovor bom objavila tudi na YouTubeu, kjer v bistvu lahko si nastavite podnapise, tako da transkripcija angleških podcastov je na voljo na YouTubeu, tako da želim vam prijetno poslušanje.
Hi Mario, great to have you on the show.
Hello, Maria. Pleasure being here.
Yesterday we had a nice lunch. To be honest, I learned a lot about you. You are American with Italian heritage. Your family is from a small village near Slovenian border, but you were born in Sri Lanka. You speak Italian, Spanish, French, read Portuguese and understand Portuguese and speak a bit of Russian. It's quite a nice collection of languages.
I try. I think I was lucky in living in many places.
You're currently in Slovenia because Cinkarne Celje management presented its half-yearly business results. You are the chairman of its supervisory board. Before that, you were a member of supervisory board of Zavarovalnica Triglav, but you have been visiting Slovenia on business since 1988.
That's correct.
How did American from Maryland, Washington land on the supervisory boards of Slovenian blue chips?
Well, I was working for the World Bank and then for EBRD, and I took part in the privatization process of several Slovenian companies. So I work with the Sklad and the Agencija of the Republic of Slovenia. And then as an investment banker with Lazard Brothers out of London, I was responsible for Central and Eastern Europe and worked with many Slovene companies from Petrol to Cinkarne to Krka, Lek, Telekom Slovenia. We did a syndicated bond issue for Telekom Slovenia. And so at one point, Mr. Andrej Slapar asked me to be on the board of the supervisory board of Triglav. And that was about 9 years ago. And then after 8 years, I left the board. And about 2 years ago, I joined the supervisory board of Cinkarne. And then I was made chairman of the supervisory board. I've been coming here for a long time. So
Slovenian country, Slovenian managers, entrepreneurs, bankers, and you probably talked to them about maybe Slovenian economy. Can you summarize your conclusions and tell us in what financial condition you think the Slovenian economy is right now?
Well, I think Slovenia has done an excellent job in transforming its economy from the socialist workers owners economy into what I would say is a mixed economy right now. It's both. It has government intervention in many companies. But I would say it's a light government intervention, and many of the managers are allowed to be independent and to be able to develop the companies. At the same time, there's been a real growth of small entrepreneurs, of technology, biotechnology, medical devices, and which are two industries that I know particularly well, and then of course there's a quite strong banking and environmental companies that do environmental investments and so on. So it's a very vibrant economy, and I think in general both the government and Slovene entrepreneurs, although they always complain about each other, they have done an excellent job in transforming the Slovene economy and in growing the Slovene economy.
So now you mentioned a few times the Slovenian government. What are your thoughts about the new Slovenian government and the situation they need to cope with now?
Well, I think all governments in Europe and in the United States are faced with a very difficult situation because they were hit by COVID, and they were able to. I think most governments were able to fight the COVID situation rather well, but now with the war in Ukraine, and also with the concomitant. I mean, I'm not sure that it's the increase in energy and increase in electricity prices and inflationary issues that are partially due also to the increase of the money supply all over, both at the ECB and at the Fed level and at all banks, the central bank of England and Sweden, etc. So they're faced with a slowing economy and with increasing inflation. I think I know the economy in the U.S. much better than the European or the Slovene economy. I think that in the U.S., the Federal Reserve could have and perhaps should have started decreasing quantitative easing before they did. And they also should have perhaps increased interest rates more slowly last year so as to fine-tune the growth of the increase of inflation. But what do I think right now, the Slovene government, going back to your question, what they should do is probably hold the course and try and follow the European Central Bank and follow try to fine-tune growth versus slowing down of inflation. And I think it's going to be a very difficult couple of years.
Before we go to inflation, you're Italian, your heritage is Italian. Many economists and central bankers say Italy is one of the riskiest countries in Europe. And there is also a lot of political drama. And just today I was looking at the Italian bonds, yields went up again. Do you think Italy is Europe's patient?
That's a very good question. I mean, I think I am more positive than most people about the Italian economy, especially because I think that Italy is used to having a difficult situation. They're used to working in an inflationary environment. They're used to working with a government that overspends, perhaps, and doesn't deliver. But I think that the spread, which is you're referring to, between the Italian treasury notes and the bunds, is overstates the danger of Italy, and I think this was shown at the time, when Mario Draghi said, we'll do whatever it takes. And I think it's a little bit overblown right now. I mean, I'm very conscious of the fact that it looks like in Italy, the Italian right is going to is probably going to win the election, which is, I think, unfortunate. I think they'll muddle through, if you know the expression, to muddle through, as they've done in the past. Going back to Slovenia, I think that it's very interesting that Slovenia is a bit counter-cyclical. In other words, you had in Janša a center-right government, and now you have in Golob a center-left government. Which is the opposite of what has happened, in the last few years almost everywhere. So whether this is going to be a positive for the Slovene economy or not, I will not venture a guess at this point.
Okay, the topics usually that we cover on Money How are mainly about investing and managing money. One of our regular guests was also Egon Zakrajšek, a Slovenian central banker who worked for the Fed for nearly 25 years. And he told us that investing for US citizens is a must, predominantly due to the setup of the pension system and healthcare, which of course differs from the Slovenian or maybe European system. So do you invest your money, and how do you manage your money, and what kind of investments do you have in your portfolio?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question. I mean, I think I've done a very bad job of investing my money. Yeah, I mean, I think most of the money I've accumulated throughout the years is tied up in my house in Washington, D.C. I have a very small mortgage. So I have a relatively small amount of cash, and my wife, who also was a banker with Continental of Illinois, she manages most of the money. I think we have of the cash. I think we have about 20% in bank deposits and short-term bonds. Both U.S. and Italian. and cash. So I say 20% in bonds, short-term bonds and cash, and 80% in equities. Which equity? The reason for that is because the value of the house is really liquid, and house prices have gone up tremendously in the U.S. So I feel that the situation, if I need money, I can just sell the house, and even in a downturn, and have enough cash to feel safe. But so 20% in cash and short-term securities, and 80% in stocks. A few banks, because I think banks are rebounding right now. And then, of course, in some pharmaceuticals, some biotech. Actually, I can't take credit for this, but my wife discovered Moderna about 2 years ago and invested quite early. Not a lot. We're very well diversified, but that was quite a good investment. Some pharmaceuticals, and then of course the usual, Amazon, some Tesla, some Google, the usual, the big cap U.S. tech companies. I think that's about it. It's a bit risky, perhaps, as a portfolio goes, but we also don't want to invest in oil and gas and fossil fuels, so yeah, I think that's more or less the the diversification of my small portfolio.
So your wife is the boss of your investment strategies and everything.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
And is she an active investor or more passive?
No, she's actually quite active. I mean, she trades on a weekly basis. She buys and sells various stocks, always very small amounts. I would say, $5,000, $10,000 on each occasion. She's not a day trader, if you will. She has a partner that is also a woman who has worked with me, actually, and her at the same bank, Continental of Illinois, of Chicago, before they went bankrupt. And they are together managing, the money of the two families, and also of several other people. Very small amounts, but I would say that they buy and sell. They make let's say 2 or 3 trades every 2 or 3 days.
And are you happy with the results?
Well, it's very difficult not to be happy with the results in the last 5 years, of the market. It's just been going up. We've taken our bumps recently, in the last 6 months to a year. Some stocks have decreased. But yeah, in general, I think it's been okay. I wish that we would have done this before, but unfortunately, we were just too busy working and taking care of the children. So we have not done a very good job in managing our money.
I heard from a few Americans, but I'm not sure. Maybe they were, I don't know, joking. They said that in the U.S., it is recommended to have a lawyer, probably a lawyer that specializes in divorces, a dentist, and a financial advisor on the speed dial. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that's a very good description of your upper middle class family. But we have a dentist, a very, very, very good dentist. who lives not far from our house. We don't have a lawyer, and actually we should make plans to have an inheritance made up or whatever. We don't have a financial advisor simply because I think we have had in the past some financial advisors, but that's when we were very busy. Now that especially my wife, but we both have some time, I think that we can outperform financial advisors. Maybe that's very sort of aggressive of us, but I think having been bankers all our lives, we should be able to figure out where to invest money.
Yeah. Egon Zakrajšek told us that a monkey could invest in S&P 500, for example, because we want to teach our listeners and viewers how to invest by themselves.
I don't know if I can't remember the author, but there was a very, very good book called A Random Walk on Wall Street, and it's it talks about exactly this problem, is that you could probably hire a monkey to throw darts at the big page of the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times and get most of the stocks. Be as accurate as a financial advisor. I don't think that's true. I think that although you should have a very well diversified portfolio, I think that if you're not going, let me put it this way: if you're not going to look at the at your investments, I think that and if you have a 10-year horizon, so you're young, you're 50 years old, 40 years old, then you might as well just buy Standard & Poor's and Dow Jones and look at it at the end of every week or at the end of every month. However, I think that by trying to identify some stocks, you can outperform in some cases the Standard & Poor's or the Dow Jones or the Nasdaq. But you have to follow the stocks very, very closely. Basically on a daily or a weekly basis, and you have to know a lot about the industry. For example, I would not invest in industries that I don't understand, like technology. I don't understand technology that well. My wife does much better. I mean, I however, understand, medical devices, biotech, pharmaceuticals, and so on. And so I think that you do have the possibility of outperforming some of the indices.
So you talk to your wife about investment opportunities.
Do I talk?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you discuss?
We talk every day. I mean,
about investment opportunities.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, not very long, but we do. If we see an article or an opportunity, then we discuss it, and then. But she decides whether to make the investment or not. Usually, unless I insist. If I think, oh look. Moderna is wonderful because it has an mRNA technology, which is probably, from what I understand of biochemistry, a very good technology that has many applications, not just against COVID. Then I insist that we try and look at it and buy it. And, like she came up with the idea. She said, oh, what do you think? And I looked into it. And actually, I'd been reading about Moderna and mRNA vaccine technology for a year before she mentioned it. And so, and actually then I said, oh, we've made enough money. We were up by, 30-40%. And I said, sell. And she didn't listen to me. And it was a good point because it went up even further. So.
I think this is a really great message for our listeners, because I think also that couples should discuss investment opportunities and talk about money management. In Slovenia, I think that women leave that decision to a partner, and I really
in
don't
America, in America too. In America too, I have
Probably.
several friends where the man makes a lot of decisions and doesn't really discuss it. And actually, my wife's business was born with this other lady to try and teach women that had made a lot of money or that had some money to invest, to teach them about the stock market, about various instruments, the bond market, the stock market, etc. So yeah, and I think you're right, and I think it is a mistake not to involve your spouse if he or she knows more than you do about certain industries. Also, it's very good to exchange ideas, because often I hear myself trying to explain something and realize that it doesn't really make that much sense, and so I pull back and say, no, we shouldn't do this, or vice versa.
Let's talk about inflation. The U.S. inflation is at a 40-year record. What does life look like for you and your fellow Americans in the light of increasing prices? And if you can give us an example of where it hurts you the most.
Yeah, I mean, I think it hurts the two items that where it hurts the most, and not just me, but also a lot of people who make less money than I do, or have less wealth than I do. It's food and energy prices, especially in a country like the U.S. that has massively underinvested in public transportation. So everyone has a car. You have to have a car to do anything, and so with gasoline prices that went from $2.50 a gallon to almost $5. Fortunately, now the price of gasoline is declining. This hurts a lot of people, and decreases their disposable income. The other issue is that a lot of Americans live in Texas, Florida, or even Washington D.C. or Southern California, where you need air conditioning. Okay, Americans use too much air conditioning, but the cost of that is doubled. We've gone up 50%, and that hurts people a lot. Also, food. I don't really, although I go shopping, I don't know the prices very well, but they've been going up tremendously, and so I think that there has been quite a strong inflationary push, both from a monetary point of view because of quantitative easing, and from a independent shock, like the war in Ukraine has increased prices of energy. Most energy companies have taken advantage of that, and you can look at the record profits, except for petrol, of course, because the government blocked the increase in prices at the pump. But most European and American oil companies have had great profits of late, taking advantage of the increases in prices of energy. So bottlenecks of as I'm sure you've discussed with your viewers, of production coming from China or coming from Russia, Ukraine, India, etc. So you've had both a monetary expansion, and you've had a supply side shocks, which have increased the inflation, increased inflation. I think that in the U.S., and I think the situation is very different in the U.S. from Europe. In the U.S., because energy is the U.S. is self-sufficient in energy, prices are coming down rather quickly, and also the U.S. has a very large food production, so they're not so dependent on in Ukraine and other places. One thing I forgot is also the as you know, productivity has increased tremendously in the last, say, 10, 20 years, and wages have not kept up with productivity. Wage increases are much lower than productivity increases. And lately, because of the tightness of the labor market, look at the low unemployment rate, and look at the number of people looking for jobs, etc., or new jobs being created in the market. You have a situation where wages are also increasing or have been increasing. I think, though, that is slowing down too. So in the U.S., inflation, I see inflation, letting off a little bit, and the economy is still growing. So if you look at the numbers today, the market thinks that the economy is still moving well, even though there have been 2 quarters of decrease in GDP. And so they expect the Federal Reserve to be true to their policy and again increase interest rates by 0.75%. In the next time they will make a decision.
Nevertheless, Powell hinted that the Fed would continue to raise interest rates more aggressively. On the other hand, some of the prominent members of ECB believe that the right way is a moderate raise in interest rate. Mario, you are a banker with many years of experience. What do you think about the monetary policy conducted by the central banks?
First of all, I think as I said before, I think that the Federal Reserve should have slowed down quantitative easing earlier than they did, and they should have increased rates before they did. And also, they should not have increased rates as much as they did. If they had done it before, they would have not had to increase rates. The economy, however, as I said, it is doing all right in the U.S. so far. And even the decrease in GDP, some people say the 2 quarters of decrease in GDP were more due to inventory increases, which I think were the result of miscalculations by corporations. So that's that. I mean, as far as the ECB is concerned, I think that they are right. If I understood what you said correctly, they're right in not increasing rates as much as they have done in the U.S. And by the way, this is reflected in the weakness of the euro, right? Because relative interest rates are higher in the U.S. than here. But I think that the ECB is going to have to be a lot more careful because the economic situation is not as strong as in the U.S. And they have to, and the bank cannot. I think just look at inflation. Although they're supposed to only look at inflation in Europe, while in the U.S. the Federal Reserve is supposed to look at both inflation and growth. I mean, I agree with the people who say that the ECB should be more careful in increasing rates than the Federal Reserve.
A few months ago, you said that nobody in America is preparing for a recession. What's the sentiment among Americans now?
People are more worried about a recession right now. 6 months ago, the situation, people were still hoping that the situation in Ukraine would be resolved quickly. People were still hoping that the inflation would not be as severe as it was, and therefore people were not as worried. I think now people are worried about inflation, perhaps too much so. But yeah, I think that the people are starting to worry more about inflation and about lack of growth in the economy.
And how deep will the recession be? About the same as in 2008, or maybe perhaps less extreme?
No, I don't think. I think I can venture a guess on that. I think it will be perhaps a longer recession, but much more shallow. In other words, small decreases in GDP or lesser growth.
And how do you see geopolitical tensions? Many issues are open in China, Taiwan, China and US and Russia and Ukraine, and so on and so on.
I think, there's a great deal of tension all over, as you said. I think, unfortunately, however, I don't see an immediate solution to any of the above. I think that Russia and Ukraine are going to continue fighting for 2-3 years. I don't see an immediate solution to that. It's unfortunate they didn't agree to a standstill, say last April or May, but here we are. I think that China is also going to slow growth. I mean, Chinese economy is going to slow its growth in the next year or so, and they continue to shut down entire cities because of COVID. So, I don't see China growing as quickly as it has in the past. I am not personally. I don't feel that the situation between Taiwan and China is immediately dangerous. I don't see China invading Taiwan in the near future. So. That's but it is an issue. I mean, it does create tension, and I think we're just going to have to live with high volatility in the market and markets in general, and with a high degree of uncertainty in the geopolitical.
And as an investor, we should take this into account when investing.
Yes, yeah. I think you cannot not take it into consideration, even if you don't invest in. If you're a U.S. investor and you don't put any money in the Polish stock market or in the Ljubljana stock market or in the, you have to take it into consideration because. From the price of wheat in Ukraine to the sale of microchips in China, all over the world, to a whole bunch of things that we don't even know about, like rare earth minerals that are used for batteries, I think. And that are mostly mined in Africa and China. I mean, I think, we are a very global economy, and I think that uncertainty and geopolitical tensions have an effect, a global effect, no matter what people say about globalism and it's all over and, whatever.
You still believe in globalization?
Yeah. I don't think there's an alternative solution. I mean, I think that globalization is just going, to continue. It's a bit like evolution. You can't really stop it. I give you an example of when I first moved to the U.S. in 1966. We moved to Boston, and Boston was not doing very well because most of the textile industry and shoe industry had moved to Tennessee, Alabama, in the South of the U.S. And it took a long time for Boston and Massachusetts to recover, but then they did recover by, increasing the insurance industry, banking industry, universities, IT, and now biotech. So now, Boston is booming with a set of completely different industries than it was before. But then the South, did very well because of textiles and shoes and other manufacturing. But now everything has moved to China or to North Africa or to, India. And I think that this process is going to continue. So we just have to try and look at, try and foresee what changes are going to happen. But I think that to say that globalization is over and each big bloc is going to retreat into a kind of a semi-isolationist economy is not going to be the case. Unfortunately, it's not going to be the case.
You mentioned euro before, and the weakness of euro and dollar is the king among currencies. How do you feel with the strong dollar in your pocket?
Well, I think the strong dollar, the recent strength of the dollar is a direct consequence of the 275, and I think it was a 50 basis point increase in interest rates. And the other problem is that the U.S. is growing more strongly and has been growing more rapidly, and productivity has been growing more rapidly in the U.S. than in Europe. So, yeah, it only makes sense that the euro that the euro has weakened a lot. I think that now that the ECB sees that they will have to increase rates, I think that this will result in a slight strengthening of the euro. But, I have seen the euro at, 86 cents to the dollar, and I've seen the euro at 170. I don't have the exact number. So, it's like 100% change, right? Almost, say 80% fluctuation, and I think right now we are where we are due to the geopolitical and banking, central banking moves and that have happened in the last few years since 2009.
You think Americans will be more motivated to invest or visit Europe or invest in Europe companies?
I think the U.S. will be more. U.S. people will be more motivated to come to Europe for sure, with a 1-to-1 exchange rate. Whether the U.S. companies will be more motivated to acquire, I would say why not? U.S. doesn't. The U.S. companies usually look at the growth, the potential profitability, and there's a big difference between acquiring, a company at 125 or 140 than at 1-to-1, right? So I think, they will start looking at it more and more seriously.
I think Americans are these days more divided. Many, let's say, revolutionary things are happening in the U.S. Supreme Court ruling on abortion, debates about the gun ownership, the Trump investigation, record high inflation, student loan forgiveness, and so on and so on. I think people in America are more divided than they used to be maybe, 10 years ago.
Oh, I don't know the answer to that question. I think you're absolutely right. That there is a lot of strife between various groups in the U.S. I'm not sure that the groups didn't exist before, and are becoming more vocal now, or whether there has been really a shift in opinion. I think that that U.S. politics has been moving slowly to the right, to the center right, for many years now, and I think that the Democratic Party and those people who are independent who don't vote have been unable to stop this rightward movement, which is a movement that in the U.S. has come from the grassroots. In other words, what they have done is the Republicans have been very successful in getting elected, in local cities and states when voter participation is very low. So all you need is, a few people, 20, 30, 40,000 people to be more enthusiastic about something. And they have been able to move the pendulum, I would say, way to the right. It's a very, very difficult situation, and I have very strong opinions on all of the issues you mentioned. We'll see what. I don't think there will be a civil war or anything like that, like some people. But
Really?
but I do think that there is. No, I do not think there will be anything like that.
But you said some people think that there is a chance of... Really?
Well, no, a civil war, but of strife, of violence, just like what happened on January the 6th, right, at the Capitol. That was a really an incredible event that hasn't happened since the War of 1812, when the British bombed the Capitol and the White House.
But probably U.S. is still the land where dreams come true. Probably.
I hope so, but I don't think so. I think that this xenophobia towards Central American immigrants is very strong, and has been very damaging to the U.S. I mean, after all, the U.S. is a country of immigrants, and Italians were treated very badly. Slaves obviously were. That goes without saying. That was a horrific thing, not comparable to anything else, and it's still not been rectified. But for example, Italians, were the immigrant group that was treated very badly, and now Italians are all right wing. Like look at Scalia, Alito, De Santis. They're all on the right, trying to stop people like them coming into the U.S. The U.S. is such a huge country. I mean, you look at the state of Montana. State of Montana is bigger than Germany, and they have, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but 700,000 people, 800, maybe, a million people. So there's a lot of land. There are a lot of resources. Yeah, there's a lot of dreams that can be built, but unfortunately, it's. I think the xenophobia is a very big problem in the U.S. Right now, but that's my opinion.
Slovenia has only 2 million people, so but it's a small country. It's not so vast.
Yeah.
Do you find it difficult to travel to Slovenia from America?
No. I think no. What do you mean by difficult? I take a plane. I get here.
Yeah, because of the connection, flight connections.
I must say, connections were better before, but they're not too bad right now. You can fly to Munich or Zurich or Frankfurt, and then you can fly to Ljubljana, and maybe they're a little bit less convenient. Maybe the flights are more full, but no, it's not that complicated to get here.
You are leaving tomorrow?
I'm leaving tomorrow.
When do you plan your next visit to Slovenia?
Well, there is a board meeting in Celje for Cinkarne in November, so I'll definitely be there for that. Oh, unless it interferes with Thanksgiving. I've tried that, and it's not gone over very well because Thanksgiving is in the U.S. is a very important holiday, as important as Christmas. So if the meeting is exactly the day of Thanksgiving or before or after, then I'll have a family rebellion. As for me traveling, but otherwise, I should be here in November. I might come here before that. On my way to, I'm working with the World Bank and with the Asian Development Bank on two very interesting projects. So I might be flying there. So I might stop on my way to Sri Lanka or the Philippines.
Do you have any final tips or advice for our listeners or viewers about investing, managing money, about searching opportunities, looking for opportunities?
I think that the world is evolving very fast, so you have to be very watchful of events, and you have to be ready to move your investments very quickly. I think that's one thing that I haven't done, but that I suggest other people should do. The other is that I think, and maybe I'm an optimist, but I think that there are some industries that are going to become more and more important. One is healthcare, both because there have been great strides being made in the fight against cancer and the fight against various pandemic diseases and the fight against many diseases in general, and also because the population is aging, right? We're getting in Europe especially, people are so healthcare in general, which goes from medical devices to hospitals, cares and whatever, care for the elderly, etc. All these things are going to become more and more important. So then I think that it is inevitable that we're going to have to move towards renewable energy. And I don't think we have done that very much. I mean, we haven't done enough by any stretch of the imagination. I am more hopeful than most. Maybe this is a silly example, but at Cinkarne, we had 3-4% of the total energy production produced internally, and we're making very big investments in solar and in the recycling of some steam in one of the plants, so that by 2026 we'll have 45% of the energy being produced internally through recycling or solar, so renewable. And I think that everyone should try and make an effort of that sort, and also an effort to, better insulate buildings and save energy and so on. So healthcare in a very wide form, renewable energy and energy savings in a very wide form, and the other thing that I really think we're starting to underinvest, especially in the U.S., et cetera, is education. I think that the more we educate them and more we help people learn new technologies, the better, the whole world will be. So I would look at those three industries in all of their aspects and invest in those.
I think it's really great advice. Mario, thank you for interesting conversation and hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me.
Tako, to je bil Mario Gobbo, Američan italijanskih korenin, ki pogosto zavije tudi v Slovenijo. Dobili smo kar nekaj zanimivih nasvetov, predvsem se mi pa zdi tudi ful fajn, da je v bistvu priznal in povedal, da njegova žena upravlja z njunim premoženjem, da se o tem tudi pogosto pogovarjata, tako da če imate doma partnerja, mogoče je lahko tudi to ena motivacija za to, da začnete malo bolj aktivno skupaj upravljati premoženje, družinsko premoženje, vajno premoženje. Tako da toliko od mene, to je bila bonus epizoda, v četrtek sledi nova epizoda. Poslušajte Manihau, ne bo vam žal in lep pozdrav!